Today is October 5th. 2 days ago, on October 3rd, the Facebook whistleblower revealed her identity on a 60-minute interview. Now, the whistleblower claims Facebook is misleading the public progress against hate speech, violence, and misinformation. Her name is Frances Eugene. Something that Facebook's been anxious to learn. It's important to note that Eugene secretly copied thousands of files while she was working at Facebook as a what was her? She worked in misinformation and started copying thousands of files because she believed that Facebook was willingly, they were aware of it and they continued with it, harming children for profit, specifically young women. Now, one study says 13.5% of teen girls say Instagram makes thoughts of suicide worse. 17% of teen girls say Instagram makes eating disorders worse. And what is revealed in these files is Instagram knows this. Facebook knows this. WhatsApp knows this. March 25th, we have removed content that could lead to imminent real-world harm. Now, the interesting thing about this is it's a true statement. However, Eugene alleges that the AI put in place to remove these harmful images is ineffective. And the only effective way to remove these images is human interaction, not AI. However, human interaction is obviously much more expensive than AI. So, Eugene has stated that they're understaffed and in turn can only deal with, how much was it? Let me just make sure I'm doing this right. It's either two... Let me make sure I get this right. I believe it was they can only deal with 2/3 of misinformation at the current staff and do not look for more misinformation, harming posts, etc., because it would just be more work for them. They can't handle what they have anyways, so what's the point in finding more? So the AI that would bring more to them for them to handle on a personal level isn't being developed because they can't handle what they already have. So another thing to bring up is the legality and bringing this to the SEC. Typically, people working at tech companies like Facebook, Apple, Google sign NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, and in turn cannot share much with the public. However, any public company is required to not lie to its investors or even withhold material information. So the SEC regularly brings enforcement actions alleging companies like Facebook and others making material misstatements and omniscience that affect investors adversely. Scott Peely, one of the things... Yes, right here it is. The Dodd-Frank Act passed over 10 years ago. Basically, a law that states no company can prohibit its employees from communicating with the SEC and sharing internal corporate documents with the SEC, even if it breaks NDAs or other such documents. This is how she is able to come forward with these documents and receive really no repercussions. And the hope is that this inspires more people in her position to come out against maybe Google or Twitter, TikTok, any kind of those things that are affecting our youth. And, we'll jump to that right now. Facebook's not alone in this. YouTube, the second biggest search engine next to Google, which owns YouTube. YouTube's dark side could be affecting your child's mental health. Not could. It is affecting your child's mental health if they are using YouTube, because mental health experts warn that fear-inducing videos affect brain development in young children. YouTube is toughening its approach to protecting content for children with 400 hours of video uploaded to YouTube every minute. So basically, they're saying it's tough for them because 400 hours of video is uploaded every minute. It's tough for them to monitor everything for kids. However, that's no excuse, really. Look at this image. This is startling right here. So what they're doing is they're taking these popular characters. This is Bubble Guppies from Nickelodeon. And they're sexualizing it. Putting it on a pole. Sexualizing it. And what was found... in this same article, is that children around the age of 13 who are being disciplined in school for oral sex or other such actions. I would not really like to get into that. Oral sex, kissing, and getting naked and acting out sexual poses. Traditionally, when schools dealt with this, they would find it's because of abuse in the home. However, now, in school, workers are finding when they follow this trail, it leads directly to YouTube, where it ends. And this is startling. Not only do images like this with a big spider here, not only do images like this with a beloved cartoon character being essentially strangled and inducing fear in children that stunts their mental growth, images like this promote early sexual activity when the brain can't fully comprehend what it's doing, and of course would thus cause an increase in youth pregnancy, youth sexual transmissions, nothing good. This is all bad stuff. And it all could be solved, they allege here, by developing more safety mechanisms for the children. It's important to note that children 18 months to 24 months should only watch with their parents. Children 2 to 5 years old should only watch high-quality video 1 hour every day. Age 6 or older should receive consistent limits. So, I personally know that most of these recommendations are not followed, and rather they're overindulging in internet consumption. So, even, connecting back to Facebook's original executive has been very vocal about how he believes technology is devolving society, and goes as far to say that his children get no screen time whatsoever. So the people profiting off of screen time don't even allow their own children to have screen time, because they recognize, and this is the problem with Facebook, they know what's wrong internally. They just refuse to take any action against it because it's their profit. It's their money stream. Which article was this? Yeah, it's just... yeah, she goes on to say that it's much harder for these companies to, Facebook in particular, to monitor in America, but it's much harder in foreign countries where they don't speak English, where they're maybe speaking Spanish, French, Russian, etc. And Eugene's papers, copies of files from Facebook that she brought, reveal that the more people in California that use Facebook, the more money California makes. Facebook, the more valuable California is to Facebook. So, countries, in the developing world where Facebook is evolving and becoming more popular, does not account for any value for the company. It kind of causes a loss for them, because they have to pay for servers for those people, and they can't really market to them the way they can in, say, California. So, we have a big problem here in America, but outside of America, it is much worse. Facebook, in response, let's see. Let's see, let's find this one. To inform... Yep, right here. So, in response to the claim that the change in meaningful social interactions in 2018 amplified polarizing and hateful content, basically just something Facebook enacted inside their corporation, amplified polarizing and hateful content. In reaction, they stated, "We have our role to play and will continue to make changes consistent with the goal of making people's experience more meaningful, but here's the key part, but blaming Facebook ignores the deeper cause of these issues and the research." Now, this statement directly, blatantly ignores what is suggested in these thousands of files from Facebook. Not suggested, what's shown. Yes, there's a deeper cause of the issue. People are going to do nasty things regardless. However, and it is stated in this article that politicians actually on the back end of things reached out to Facebook saying, we don't like what's going on here because you guys only promote negative posts. We used to post positive things. Now we have to attack our opponent if we want to win the social media game. That's what they stated. So for Facebook to say blaming Facebook ignores the deeper cause of these issues, yes, people are going to do stuff, but you're directly influencing and encouraging these actions. Again, Facebook is not alone. Apple is also being urged to take action on smartphone addiction, some call digital heroin. This is 2018, so this whole digital conversation is nothing new, but what's interesting and pointed out here is, again, the terrible effects on the youth. But let's see, China. America is once again behind on all these other countries where they are recognizing tech addiction as a disorder, and thus they are being more proactive. So China has more than 300 treatment centers. They estimate 10 million teenagers are addicted. Now, my intrigue goes out to how would Facebook respond to that question. Really, any of these tech companies, but let's say there are 10 million people addicted to your service. What are you going to do about that? Is the profit worth more than society? That's the big question. Let's look at The Verge. I liked what The Verge over here had to say. This kind of segues into less of the Facebook files, but the Facebook shortage that followed several hours after the 60 Minutes interview was published. So Facebook returns after its worst outage ever. It was 7 hours long, nearly, during which everyone rushed to Twitter. But the interesting thing that they talked about here is the interruption also affected gameplay for owners of Oculus VR headset, a company Facebook bought in 2014. So something you're not even thinking about. Oculus. That's a gaming thing. And even further, Oculus is owned by Facebook, but even further, things not owned by Facebook. Some sites like Tinder or Spotify that use Facebook credentials were unable to authorize logins. And Facebook strongly claims that this is not caused by denial of service attack. So it wasn't a hack and it wasn't self-induced. The question now becomes, what if it was a hack? How bad could it be? If this really wasn't a hack, if it really wasn't self-induced to slow down, talk about the Facebook whistleblower, slow down, talk about also the Pandora Papers, which many politicians who have a lot to lose from the Pandora Papers spreading, and Facebook's great relationship with working with politicians, I don't know, it's kind of getting into conspiracy there. But if this isn't self-induced and if this isn't a hack, the bottom line is, what if it was? all these sites like Spotify, Tinder, that are completely separate from Facebook were shut down. And then it opens up to Google. What would happen if someone like Google was hacked? Because now this is like if there was a power outage somewhere. Kind of brings up the conversation for power outages of other places, because Google isn't really that much more sophisticated than Facebook in terms of security. So what if Google was hacked? And that's where they recommend regulation. Yes. What steps need to be taken, and what level of regulation is the company willing to accept? This is something that Eugene pushes on. This is something that CNBC pushes on. This is something that The Verge push on. Everyone's pushing for the same way we regulate money in America. We need to regulate security. Security. The SEC needs to be more strict on, hey, Google, you have everyone's information. You need to be up to code so that you can't be hacked easily and basically shut down our entire government. So Facebook, as a result, we're kind of moved on from the Facebook. As a result, the stock dropped 5% in one day. Since then, it's up and only down 4% from that initial. But I don't think it's over. I don't think this whole discussion is over. Instagram accidentally removed likes for some users. Here's what your post looked like without them. I was thinking about talking about that. But this conversation isn't new. This conversation isn't over. A Netflix movie about social media, The Social Dilemma, touches on the same thing. The same thing, and let me quote Eugene on this. Where does she say? I might not be able to find it, but basically, she says, Facebook exchanges profit. Yes, Facebook exchanges profit for societal peacefulness. Something of the sort. I don't know, very interesting topic. I don't know.